Hello, hello. Um, I just wanted to come on here and discuss something, which I know is what I just did in my last video, and I certainly don't want my channel to just be me coming on chatting about various topics, although I do like videos like that. I don't want that to be all I do, but I have some things that I wanted to talk about because I read a book and I found it to be offensive and gross, and I wanted to talk about kind of what that means in literature, because I am not a super easily offended person, but I think it's okay if people are offended by various things in literature. But I want to talk about when I find things offensive, I guess. We'll see if this comes out coherent. Jesus. So I read a book that had a lot. Here, let me just tell you. I read the book Up the Line by Robert Silverberg. This is my first Silverberg book. I've heard lots of great things about him, and I I hated this book. I think it's going to get my worst book of the year so far. No, I know it's the worst book I've read so far this year. It might not be the worst book I read all year, but so far it is. And, I'd heard a lot about Silverberg, including the fact that a lot of his books have tons and tons of sexual content. And I thought, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. This book in particular is indeed chock full of sexual content. But sexual content that feels oddly out of place, feels shoehorned in, feels incessant, is also often non-consensual, is sometimes, in one instance, straight up, the main character is forcing himself on someone. There's also a lot of talk and actions related to minors and adults. So, okay, a main plot line in this book, this is not a book review, but a main plot line in this book is that the main character wants to go back in time to have sex with his ancestors. So, he's like, let me go back and have sex with my great-grandma, and then my great-great-great-grandma, and then my great-great-great-grandma, and keep going back further and further until because, the main character's like, oh, it's divine to have intercourse up the line, like your line of heritage. Ew, Robert Silverberg. And there's one scene in particular where he is back in time. He travels back in time, meets his grandma, and he's talking to her, and he's like, ooh, she's a hottie, which weird. And then his mother, who is like a 5-year-old girl, walks into the room naked, and some of the descriptions of what this main character is thinking is gross. Ew, Robert Silverberg, ew, gross. Now, that being said, I read a book right after that book called Bentley Little's The House. I'm not going to do a review of this one either, but that one also had some sexual content involving a young person and an adult. God, this is hard to talk about on YouTube, but the content in that book was arguably more extreme, more graphic, more vulgar, but I was less offended by it than I was in the Robert Silverberg book. And this is kind of what I want to talk about. Content within a fictional story in and of itself doesn't generally bother me. I'm sure that I do have a line, but I think that line is pretty far. Like, I've read some extreme horror with some horrible, horrible things, and it's fiction. I think it's harder for some people to separate that line, and that's totally fine. Know yourself. But for me, I'm usually able, to separate the line. So, like, some people don't like when an animal is killed in a book. That's fine. If you don't like that, don't read that. I totally support your decision. I think that is valid and makes sense. For me, it's words on a page. It's not real. It's not it's not real, right? And I'm able to just see that as a piece of the story and move on. Some people aren't, and that's okay. Like in real life, I love animals. I get mad when people kill bugs in the house. I'm like, no, trap it and take it outside. Let it live. Unless it's a mosquito, then kill it. Or a cockroach, because I'm too scared to touch it. Someone else has to deal with that. I don't care what you do with it. Just get it out. But besides that, I don't want to even hurt bugs, But in a book, it's just fiction to me, mostly. So the content itself is not usually a problem for me. But I think how the content is handled within the story is important. And this is kind of, once again, gradually getting to my point here. In the Bentley Little book, there is a young girl who is making, it reminds me of The Exorcist. If you recall, the young girl makes, as the devil is speaking through her, she says very vulgar sexual advances towards the adults. And in this book, it's the same thing, but amped up a little bit because it's a book and not a movie. But this young girl is making wildly offensive, horrible, vulgar gestures to some adults and saying things and acting ways. And these adults in this book are aroused by this. But the thing is, these characters are horrified that they're aroused. They're disgusted with themselves. They're asking, why is this happening? Why am I reacting like this? In other words, the book is presenting these horrible things, but it is then acknowledging that this is not normal. This is not okay. This is not right. Even the characters agree. So there's bad, but there's also good to counterbalance that. And so it even comes out in the end that that's not a little girl. It's just like evil incarnate, and it's trying to, bring humans towards evil, whatever, right? And so that makes sense. Like, that is evil, and maybe that is how evil would present itself. Sure, I buy into it. Now, to go back to Robert Silverberg's book, the amount of sex in the book, in and of itself, just doesn't need to be there. These scenes felt bizarrely shoehorned in, like I said. But I mean, I could get past that, whatever. It's fine. But the characters in this book, every single male character in this book is a horrible person. And the female characters, what female characters? There aren't any. Like, literally in this book, the female characters exist to have sex. I'm not even sure there's like a single line for any of them. And if it is, it's them just like ripping off their shirts, like out of nowhere. Like a normal character in one scene just like rips her clothes off because she's so she says she's just so attracted to that man or something. It's ridiculous. Like in public, it's ridiculous. And then at one point, this main character is like frustrated with some time travel stuff, and so he literally like turns around and just forces himself on the first woman he sees. And then as soon as he's done with her, and her reaction to this is not even described. Like, it's so unimportant to the author. It's not even acknowledged or described. And then he like walks away, and later he figures out his problem wasn't really a problem with this time travel thing, and he's like, I don't know why I got so worked up. That's what he describes, what he just did. I don't know how I got so worked up. It's crazy. Okay? And so you might make the argument, well, Robert Silverberg's books have characters who aren't good people. And I love reading books where characters aren't good people, because often in life, people aren't good people. But here's the thing. Just like with the Bentley Little book, the book has to somehow acknowledge that I am supposed to believe this is a bad person. But in this book, I didn't find that anywhere. I think we're supposed to like the main character. I don't know. Because he behaves the exact same way as literally every other male character in this book. Now, maybe we're supposed to believe that society has evolved in the future to men behaving this way in general, which in that case, okay. But the book never hints to me that that is what I'm supposed to believe. Like, maybe this was supposed to be a commentary on how we as a society have advanced so far that we've just, I don't know, gone so far in the wrong direction that we have just become these unfeeling, like, horrible people. But that's not the book. Like, that's not the point. My point is, there are no good, the main character is at no point wrestling with his ethics, with his consciousness, with who he is and what he's doing. There's no good characters to be like, hey, what are you doing? In other words, the book never acknowledges that these horrible things are horrible. It's just the way it is in this world, in Robert Silverberg's literary world. And there's no purpose either to the characters being this way. So to me, it just feels like that is Robert Silverberg's opinions coming through in his writing, which in my opinion is just bad writing. Now, I know that a lot of people love Robert Silverberg's work, and I've also heard that this is the most egregious example of this. But I was so baffled and shocked by this book. Like, what is it? Okay. Is it some sort of transgressive fiction? I don't know. I would love to hear some opinions of people who have read this and want to argue with me. Because I see nothing redeeming in this, and I think that it is pretty horrible, and I'm honestly shocked it was published. And that's why. That's my why. And my point was, because I knew if I came on here and I said, like, I didn't like this book, there's a lot of, like, horrible sexual stuff, that people would be like, they'd throw out all kinds of arguments, like, you know, not all characters have to be good, you know, these things happen in the real world, and but it has to be believable within this world. There has to be a point. There has to be a reason. Otherwise, it's just like shock value, but I don't even think it was supposed to be shock value. It really just felt to me like this is some sick, bizarre fantasy that Robert Silverberg was writing on the page, and I couldn't stand it. And that is all that I have to say about that. Yeah. That's it. Have you read this? Let me know. Actually, I wanted to mention too, I Googled this a little, or I searched on YouTube to see if anyone else had talked about this, and just a few weeks ago, the channel Books, Songs, and Other Magic had a very similar video to the one I am making right now. So if you want to hear more people discuss this, go check out his video. I'll link it in the description below. But yeah, that's it. Later, guys.